Good evening, Razorback fans. Welcome to another episode of the Hawg Talk podcast, live from the Sterling Soap and Roaster Studios, part of the Believe in Buzz Radio Network, where you can hear us on 106.7 in Central Arkansas. All live shows are presented to you by Arkansas Brewing Company in downtown Ozark. I'm Porter Hayes, and alongside me, as always, is Adam Hall. We're also brought to you by Bet Online, your number one source for NBA Finals and Stanley Cup Finals this season. Every stat, matchup, and even live odds and spreads while the games are being played. When the game's over, head over to our online casino and get on the game action of blackjack or poker, or unwind with one of our over 150 slot games. Head to the website today and get in on the action. Use the promo code BLEAV for your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Bet online where the game starts. And we start tonight's broadcast with talking about, of course, the return of Trevin Brazile. We knew that there had been talks of him enrolling in summer school. There had been talks about him coming back, but he made it official. And then with the official signing of Wagner, that puts the roster at 9. There's still things to unfold. I know Coach Cal said he wanted to stay at 9 or 10, but we'll get into it a little bit later. But, I mean, there's talks of Hurley going to the Lakers, and how could you not want to pursue some of the guys off the UConn men's basketball team? But Adam, we'll start it off. What is your thoughts on him coming back and being that role player, or does he get in the starting lineup next year's team?
I'm all for it. I've been pretty, I think, vocal the last several weeks on, a couple shows, and I truly feel like, this is a coach that will utilize Trevin in the position that he truly should be playing in, which is a stretch 4. He's not going to be asked, to be around the rim the entire time, which I think that maybe he was utilized the wrong way under Eric Musselman. And it is, it is what it is. It's all in the past. I think that if there's any coach to get Brazile to where he needs to be, it's Coach Cal. He had a good showing at the NBA Combine with his measurements, his vertical. He got more on the radar. It just wasn't where he had wanted to be. I think from some of the projections, I think it's the smart move for him to come back, and it's a great move, I think, for Cal to bring him back to give him the opportunity, because we can look at some of the players. One in particular, I think you look at and you have to look at is a player like Karl Anthony Towns that, it could, I'm not saying that Brazile is at that level by any means. I'm not trying to directly compare the two, but, talk about a player that has played that stretch 4 position and played it almost perfectly. I think Brazile has a lot left in the tank. 2 years or going on close to 2 years that he'll be removed from the ACL injury. I think we're going to have a Brazile that we haven't seen yet, or been able to see a full run of yet.
Yeah, and I'd made that point. I believe John Neighbors or his entity, 90 State Sports, had posed the question, about what your thoughts were on him coming back. And I think it's a great idea, but it all depends on which one are we getting. We can't deny that we've seen 2 different versions of Brazile. But I made the point of, I think he's going to be pushed. I think he's, you got a loaded roster. You're not going to be the lone returning starter coming fresh off an injury that is pushed to put this team on your back. You're going to have other guys around you, but you're going to have guys that are better than you on this team. You're going to be going up against guys better than you on this team. So it depends on which one we get. If it's somebody who's really trying to be hungry, be a dog, as we say, we've seen his potential. I think that's what's going to help.
Mm-hmm.
He's going to have the potential, and he can play in the SEC. It's just he's just going to have to bring it. But with that being said, I think Coach Cal is pretty clear on, look, I've got 5 other guys, 6, 7, 8 other guys that if you're not performing, hey, you're on the bench. So it's not like it's really a win-win situation. We're going to give him a second chance to see what he could be, because, again, he was injured. And you're getting to see a guy who could have went to another school. You lost somebody in, say, what he say he goes somewhere else and goes for 15, 17 a game. He's staying here now. So you're going to have that productivity. And I wish nothing but the best for him because, again, you always like to see guys that are the Razorbacks stay Razorbacks and finish out their career in a Razorback uniform.
Mm-hmm. And, I was thinking about it the other night after the announcement and everything that, I can't imagine who the lob is going to come from, whether it's, DJ Wagner or Boogie Fland or Billy Richmond, whoever it is. But that first lob to Brazil that, throws down, that Bud Walton Arena is going to erupt.
Oh, yeah.
Because, even I look at the past as the past. And I think that everybody will be elated at a revitalized Trevin Brazil.
Mm-hmm.
And, it would be even cooler if you get that, like a big Z to Trevin Brazil coming off the baseline or just something crazy. I think that first lob, that first dunk is Bud Walton Arena is going to erupt from it.
Oh, yeah. I could see them doubling up on Big Z down low, and he just takes that over the head pass, and then they turn around and there's Brazil already in the air. Somebody's going to get dunked on. And with the size that you have, that's another thing. He's not going to be forced all game to go down low and bang with these people. Like you said, he's a stretch four. The main thing I want to say is, coming off that injury, you don't know how healthy he was last year. You don't. I mean, everybody gives him a lot of flack, but it's a tough situation we're in because, there's a lot of this guilty by association. There's a lot of people who sit out. It started with Nick Smith Jr. when he sat out with his injury, and everybody piled on to he's just holding out for the NBA contract deal. Ever since then, if anybody sits out, they're automatically holding out. They're automatically sitting out. So sometimes it ends up being that way, and sometimes it's not. It's just the rap and that, like I said, that guilty by association of what's happened in the past. And so we're going to get to see what he's really about. And I think, again, being in that gym and seeing legit, I am playing against 7, 8, 4, 5-star guys.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be a different vibe in that locker room. It's going to be a different vibe on that court. I think we're going to see a lot of highlight films in the non-conference season and in practice. I can't wait to see what this team produces.
And, there's still the questions I've seen asked around, like what's going on with like Coleman Hawkins and are there any other names? And, at this point, I don't think we truly know. I know I saw a day or two ago that Coleman Hawkins is visiting Louisville. If you ever want to see a player troll other fan bases, it is Coleman Hawkins' X account. It's pretty comical at times, but also you can't ever really gauge where he's at or where he's leaning. But like, you mentioned earlier, the news today with, Hurley and the Lakers and UConn, I mean, that could completely change whatever plan, that Coach Cal previously had, because no, you're not going to lose all of those players. You're going to have a lot of those players that want to stay put and prove, who they are. And, whether it's an assistant coach, because it's of where we're at in the year that steps up, or they bring somebody else in, you're going to see players stay. You're going to have a handful of players go. And you've got a team like Arkansas that still has, I think, 4 scholarship spots available. That's something to definitely keep an eye on, because, if you reached out and grabbed 1, maybe 2, change your game plan, you've just stacked your deck even more.
Well, and think about this too, though. We're only seeing one layer of this. What if Hurley does go to Los Angeles and they get a Bruce Pearl, or they get a Nate Oates, or they get now you're not only talking about UConn, now you're talking about, say, he gets an Auburn, or he gets a Tennessee coach, or he gets a Alabama coach. Now you've got those players as well. So it's going to be something interesting to keep your eye on. I honestly, and we can just go right back into segue into that topic of, I think it's a horrible decision for him, just for the fact that LeBron's there. Everybody said it. LeBron is a coach killer. He is it's all about him. He wants to play one more year with his son, and they're going to be forced to draft his kid that can't even – they're having to finagle stuff to make him be draft eligible. I mean, I've heard – of course, you got his writers and his stands that, they want to pick Bronny, but he didn't do anything in college, and all that does is put pressure on the kid. And to make him draft eligible and the Lakers draft him, and you're going to put yourself into that after coming off back-to-back national championships? I don't know, but again, he can always come back to the college game. I just think it's a horrible decision to put yourself into that kind of environment to where it's nothing but drama over there with him.
And I didn't know how much I initially believed about it all. I know Dan Hurley spoke with his team today just to let them know, like, hey, this is just business, like, but the talks are happening, etc. And kudos to him for having that conversation with his players, because like we talked about previously, going down to the high school level, coaches don't do that often enough. So, props to him for being transparent with his players. Going back to the Lakers, any person that were to take this job, that within a year or two was going to be looking for another job. And so I honestly felt like leading up to this point that essentially JJ Redick's been interviewing for it because of their podcast. And I will say this, because I know some folks that don't necessarily like the X's and O talk or the analytics talk don't care for JJ Redick. He's one of, if not the smartest person on television when it comes to the game of basketball.
Yeah.
And so I enjoy listening to their podcast just because I like listening to the actual X's and O's talk. But, I felt all along, like I said, that he's just been interviewing for that position. And then it's something that if it doesn't work out, then just kind of like Steve Nash in Brooklyn, a year or two down the road, he's out. They're looking for somebody else. But, what they've done with Bronny, I think is it hurts him as a player in his future. I don't agree with Kendrick Perkins very often when he's on whatever show he's on ESPN. Yeah. But, a few weeks back, he said it perfectly because they kept talking about Bronny and he just kind of stopped the conversation. And he was like, what are we doing? He said, I've been doing this show for 4 years and we have never spoke about a guy that is in the second round potentially, or could not even get drafted. We've never given this much, spotlight to. And so they came back with, who his dad is and how big this is and this and that. And I'm like, I've had conversations with friends. Jerry Rice's son didn't get this much hype. Barry Sanders' son didn't get this much hype whenever they were doing this. So why are we doing it now? Well, and it's ridiculous. We didn't give Jordan's son this much hype when he went to UCF or wherever it was in Florida that he went to. So, why are we doing it now?
Exactly. And just quick of his stats: 4.8 points a game, 2.8 rebounds, and 2 assists a game. What name anybody else that's even getting a look with those stats? Nobody's getting any kind of pub time. I mean, that's end of the bench, that's scrub time. It is all about who he is. And the fact is it's like I would do the same thing if I was a father, though. I would, hey man, if I can get my kid in, look at LeVar Ball. Look what he's done with his kids, but he made himself a name and got his kids to the NBA and he got their foot in the door and let them do with what they had on their own path, but that's what he's doing. But it's like, look, it's unfair because what he's coming at the media for things about, well, he's just a kid. He's this, you're doing this to him because you're putting him in that position where everybody knows he's not an NBA player. Everybody knows he's not going to live up to your expectations. So therefore, let him do his own thing. I think you're doing more harm than you are doing good by putting him in that position because you're setting him up saying he's an NBA draft pick when he's averaging 4 points a game. Nobody else would get that treatment. So therefore, all the negative talk is just because, well, we know why. It's because of who he is. It's because he's your kid. So we see it all the time in travel ball and all this stuff with basketball, baseball. He's that dad. It's just on a different level.
And, I watched quite a bit of Bronny back when he was in high school, games that were on TV. I know his travel ball team, I think, were up in Bentonville a time or two. And, watching him, he has great court vision. He has great basketball IQ, especially more than a lot of players his age, especially, back when he was in high school. I know the the heart issues or whatever it was happened when he first got to USC, and he was out, and that's terrible that happened and having to fight back from that. I totally get it. I thought back at when he was selected for the McDonald's All-American game in high school. He was picked over players that he shouldn't have been picked over. I believe Layden Blocker was one of those players.
Yep.
And, Layden Blocker was ranked higher, yet didn't get chosen because of Bronny James. Unfortunately he's put in this position, yes, because of who his father is, but everything that's really going on, I mean, you would hope that he had some say in a lot of this, but I feel like he hasn't yet, especially with his agent coming out saying, we will not accept a two-way deal for the G League. No matter, and I'm just kind of like, you are basically holding any team that drafts him hostage.
Mm-hmm.
And, and it's one of those things, especially now, I think the New Orleans Pelicans, and I know this is deep diving a little bit and not everybody cares, but I think the Pelicans had the option to trade or to take the Lakers first round pick this year, and they've chosen not to do it. So like the Lakers will pick it 17th, I think, or something like that. And I think it's solely because they don't want to be pressured into this. And also they're kind of forcing LA to take Bronny that high because you're basically telling them like, nut up or shut up, you're going to take this.
Yep.
And we're going to see if, you're all talk or not. And potentially you're having to waste a draft pick is what this could end up being.
Well, and that's the thing, and Brad says it well. He doesn't even belong in the G League. He's not that good, and he's not. Let's just be real. Let you take the name away. You see those blind resumes they do with teams, and should they get to the tournament, put his stats, and so be it. Albeit that he does have that heart condition, but that's still where he's at as a player. He's not good enough to make it in the NBA. So it is the special treatment. He is that participation trophy dad on the pro level of, hey, get my kid into the league because of who he is. And that's not fair, because you look at like Layden Blocker, if he was that guy that he got chosen, like, you have a chance, like a legacy, right? And as men, that's got to mean something to Layden. Like if he was getting a chose for a McDonald's All-American, he gets to hang that up in his dorm room or when he has a family and he gets to show his kids that. I mean, I know we're going down a little rabbit hole, but that means something. And for have that taken away for somebody who clearly didn't deserve it just because of a name. I mean, we see it at the local level all the time, but it's being publicized because of the popularity of who we're talking about.
Yeah. And, it's crazy that the media as a whole has basically put a stranglehold on the whole NBA combine draft process, because that up until that point that he is selected, they're going to be, the cameras are going to be on him. They're going to constantly be going to him. Even after the fact, I guarantee they're going to be. So we're taking away from players, say, that are, that did go to this combine, that are in the draft process. You're taking away spotlight from somebody that is much more deserving, that has earned it, that hasn't been handed everything.
Well, it's coming to fruition because they're talking about it, in that combine when, he made 7 straight threes. Well, anybody in that level, let's just be real. I sat there and watched Dusty Hannahs knock down 97 threes in a row. Amazing three-point shooter. But he's been in the G League. He's been overseas. He's never like just made it. I think he signed a 10-day contract with the NBA level. 10 times the shooter that Bronny is. And we see how hard it is for people. Look at the roster. Look at Anthony Black. Look at Jordan Walsh. Look at Ricky Council. Look at all these guys that come out of Arkansas that are really, really good. Moses Moody that struggled to get back and forth on these rosters and the grind it took for them. But we knew what type of player. These are players that could average 20, 25 a game, and they're struggling to make an NBA roster. Jalen Williams, Jordan Walsh, they did things to earn their way to that roster spot. And that's what people don't realize is, look, you've got all these All-Americans, and now you're going to NBA roster that go 8, 9 deep, just like what Cal's wanting to do. You've got 30 teams times 8 players on a roster. Good luck trying to get a fit and then staying, So we're seeing it across the board. But again, it's going to be one of the things, flash in the pan. We only got to deal with this for a couple more years. I mean, it's just because again, I'm a Jordan guy. So it's just like, I'm ready for this hoorah to be over with, because it's like, I don't know. It's just been a dog and pony show ever since he went to the Lakers, and you get that one bubble ring and haven't done anything since. And now you're bringing your kid into it, and it's just not fair. And I think it's only going to do nothing but hurt him.
Oh yeah, and I mean, I remember back when I think it's Marcus Jordan was going through all his getting into college, whatever, and it was crazy because I mean, obviously, Jordan's your goat, Jordan's my goat, Jordan's a lot of people's goat. We were all looking at Marcus Jordan like, you're not going to be your dad.
Yeah,
you're not going to be anywhere near it, and it was just kind of like, I mean, and I get some of that was maybe detrimental the other way, but at the same time, it was a lot more real. It was a lot more honest than what we're seeing right now. And there's one more James kid, Bryce.
He's going to be better. He's going to be better. He's going to be.
And I've been saying that for quite a while. That Bryce has the height. He's got the size. He's he's in my opinion, he was just a little bit more developed. But then I've seen him play over the last several months in some of these travel ball leagues, and he's falling into this, I think, travel ball rhythm to where he's just wanting to hover around a 3-point line.
Yeah.
And he's not really moving himself forward in a sense of, I'm better than everybody. He's just kind of like basically just sitting and hovering a 3-point line, waiting for a shot. And it's like, you're hurting yourself more than anything right now. But again, people are going to be looking at who your dad is. It's just, he's not going to have the advantage of his dad still hanging on to play with him when that time comes.
Well, and how much of it is he looking at? Well, I see my brother. He ain't really having to try, and he's getting in the league. Like, I can half-ass this and make it to the league. I mean, he is going to be a better player. I mean, it's like he was the chubby little kid that filled out, and you see him in 8th, 9th grade, and you're like, okay, he grew 3-4 inches, and you're like, okay, he's going to be a baller. And he has. He's turned into a baller, and we'll see what happens with that. But it'll be interesting to see how all this plays out within the next 2-3 weeks. And it's crazy. Again, we're looking for things with baseball season over with, and we're looking into football. But this basketball story is going to take a while to unfold, because we don't know what's going to happen if he does leave, and if he does, who's going to take his spot, and then what players are going to be affected in the portal and be able to come out, and who does Cal go after? If he does, he might not. And that's another topic, is all this talent. What if Cal is set on his? We'll talk about this before we go to break. Let's just say Hurley goes to Lakers, and then they pick up UConn picks up Bruce Pearl. You got 2 teams. Both the teams hit the portal. Cal gets none of them because he's set on. What do you think the reaction for the fan base is going to be, seeing the talent that both of those teams have, and Cal's like, no, I'm good?
I think you're going to have one side that is like, what are we doing? But I also feel like that side will eventually come around and be like, I'm trusting what he's doing.
Yeah.
Because we have not had this caliber of a coach. So I think it's one of those that, on a whim right up front, it's going to be kind of questioning him, but then you got to just sit back and be like, well, we've trusted him so far, so let's just let him do his thing. I think a lot of it's going to just boil down to, does he want to bring in more personalities, obviously more talent, into what he's already started getting? Because you got to think these guys are hitting, Fayetteville right now. So they're already trying to gel with each other, get accustomed to each other. Does he want to bring in others that are going to get a late start on that, and that may come in and be like, well, I've just won back-to-back national titles, even though I'm new, this is my team.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm not saying any of those players would do that, but that's what you have to look at.
Mm-hmm. Well, and you're coming from a different mentality. You're coming from a team that, hey, look, I know what it takes. I've won back-to-back. Hasn't been in a while. But it's going to be one of them where the people who are agreeing with it, but you better win, and then you're going to be the ones that are you crazy? The ones that are with it, they're going to be like, okay, I'm with you, I trust you, but man, that first 3-game losing streak or that first back-to-back loss to whoever it be, Vandy or Georgia, whoever, that you start losing these games that you're not supposed to lose, that's always going to creep up. Well, you should have more. Heaven forbid. I hope this, knock on wood, a player goes down. And then you're like, man, see, we should have that's the biggest thing. If you have an injury and you're like, man, if you'd have brought this other kid on, now you're not hurting as bad if you do have this injury. That's where that's going to go.
Yeah, and that's been in the back of my mind ever since I listened to the podcast, when he was talking about rolling with this amount of players. And, he even mentioned it, it was, somebody gets hurt or in foul trouble, then you're down to 7 if you had 8, which now would be 8 instead of 9. But, that's something that he's willing to risk. And, we're also going worst case scenario with it. But that's easy to do, especially as Arkansas fans, because unfortunately that seems to be what happens. But you just hope that the tables have turned with it all, and that things will end or happen in a different manner than they've happened previously.
It reminds me of Christmas. Every year, this is for people who have kids and you're wondering what to get them for Christmas, and especially if, like, I have 3 boys, so me and my wife, we want to make it even, but they all have their own things that they want. So you're the quality of what they really want. So you want to get them the gifts that really matter to them, and then to make sure they all have enough to open, or the even amount to open, you have those filler gifts. And I think if you go 10, 11, 12, you want to stick to 8 or 9. That's going to be your quality gifts. That's going to be your ones that you can count on. And then you have the fillers. So if he just wants to cut to the chase, he'd be like, I'm sticking with my quality. I know I got 2 rotations of 4 to 5-star guys. These other guys, yeah, they're on roster, but they're probably going to leave anyway if they're not getting a play. It's just how this area is. You put them on the court maybe 2, 3, 4 minutes a week. Every other game they're playing, or down the stretch, you're playing them in non-con conference season, you don't play them. More than likely, if they find somewhere else to go, they're going to sew, or they're just there to ride the coattails because they know this team's going to win a national championship. So that's what you got to think about as well. But I always think about that thing about the Christmas gift thing as just the fillers. You got players on your team, they're just filling a role to get you out of foul trouble, or get you out of, hey, last 2 minutes, let's get our team a rest. We got a comfortable lead. You're just throwing them in there to give your starters a break. But you got 2 full rotations of team, you're not going to need those fillers because of how many quality gifts you have.
And looking at, if he were to bring on any players from these teams, the domino effect of if Hurley leaves or not, you've potentially then got future problems like you were mentioning with even the filler players leaving. Well, now you've brought in somebody that messes up what you've told another player that you've brought in. So now you're looking at, okay, if that player that you've brought in already has a diminished role, are they then going to be like, all right, I'm out? So then we're into a situation about how he has said that he doesn't want to develop players for other places. So he's got to really look at, if I bring in player A, are they going to mess up the flow or what I have put in front of, say, Boogie Fland? And then he's going to be unhappy, and then he's going to end up in the portal. I mean, there's a whole chain reaction here that could happen. And probably the safest bet would be to stick with what you got. But I know sometimes some of those players that are out there or might become out there, you can't say no to, or say no to the possibility of. But, I think you really look hard at, if that happens and these players do enter the portal, you got to start looking at, well, who's got scholarships available? Is he going to go to a Tennessee or an Auburn or somebody that I'm going to have to face twice a year? And that's one of the things that he'll have to look at. But then also it could be in our favor that you're going to have a Kentucky, you're going to have a USC, you're going to have any of these other schools. And I'm bringing up USC because of Musselman, but also because, you're looking at teams that quickly filled their rosters. So, you got to look at, a multitude of things in that. And I think it's a big chess match that, really all lies on Dan Hurley's shoulders.
Yeah. And we're going to go take a quick commercial break. When we come back, we are presented with a question by our good friend and LSU guy Carter Bryant. Two calls, or he was asking Arkansas fans, what calls did just refs really screw us out of on, and we have two specific ones that we're going to talk about after the break that really in our minds, and one was really fresh. One we had to go back a little bit. I know there was some people that were talking way back in the SMU days, but we're going to talk about both of those situations, and we'll wrap it up with that after the break. Attention DIYers and home improvement enthusiasts. Are you searching for the right tools and the supplies to tackle your next project? Look no further than Mentor's Hardware Store. With locations in Ozark, Alma, and Clarksville, our vast selection of hardware and building materials is sure to have everything you need. Whether you're fixing a leaky faucet or building a new deck, plus our knowledgeable staff is always on hand to offer expert advice and guidance. And with our competitive prices and convenient online ordering, Mentor's Hardware Store is your one-stop shop for all your DIY needs. Visit us today and let's build something amazing together. Are you in need of legal representation? Look no further than the offices of Robertson, Beasley, Shipley, and Robinson. As the oldest law firm in the River Valley, we have been serving our clients for over 100 years, with locations in Ozark, Fort Smith, and Spring. Our experienced team of attorneys provide expert guidance and advocacy in a wide range of legal areas, including personal injury, family law, criminal defense, and more. Trust in our history and experience to the results you deserve. Contact the law offices of Robertson, Beasley, Shipley, and Robinson today at 479-782-8813. That's 479-782-8813. Are you looking for a place to grab a cold drink and some delicious food? Look no further than Arkansas Brewing Company. Located at 201 South 1st Street in beautiful downtown Ozark, our establishment offers a wide selection of craft beers and tasty eats. But what sets us apart is our welcoming atmosphere and friendly staff. At Arkansas Brewing Company, you'll always feel like part of the family. So visit Destiny and Christopher Brockett and staff today and see for yourself what makes us the go-to spot for locals and visitors alike. Arkansas Brewing Company, come for the drinks and stay for the friends. Searching for premium brewery products that will take your daily routine to the next level? Look no further than Sterling Soap Company. Our handmade soaps, aftershaves, and balms are made with only the finest ingredients that give you the ultimate grooming experience. With a variety of scents to choose from, there's something for everyone. Plus, our products are crafted in small batches to ensure the highest level of quality. So why wait? Visit www.sterlingsoap.com or visit our retail store at 16 West Walnut Street in Paris, Arkansas. Shop our collection and discover the difference for yourself. Upgrade your grooming routine with Sterling Soap Company. And welcome back to the Hawg Talk podcast. And before we went to break, we alluded to the question that Carter Bryant posed to Facebook this morning. He was asking questions about the refs and how they have affected certain Arkansas games. And if you could pick a game, which one would you choose? And I think we've both, queued up two that are, one, like I said, is very fresh to the minds of Razorback football fans. Both are football plays. One happened back in 2009 and one happened a couple of years ago. Again, that's really fresh on the minds of Razorback fans. One, I know they say a ref doesn't affect the outcome of the game, but this one that we're going over, Adam's choice, directly affected the outcome of a game. And I think it's the closest one that I've ever seen where you can really say, if this call doesn't happen, it changes the game.
Mm-hmm. It's a late whistle, but now a flag comes in.
He muffed the snap initially, and then he went to spike the football. Watch him. He's saying clock, clock, clock. Watch him muff the snap. They're not under center much at Auburn.
And this time, he barely sneaks it through.
Yeah. I just, what was your reaction, like live? Okay, that's going on. What was your reaction as that was going on?
I mean, first you're just yelling at the TV. Couldn't believe it. You're immediately going, because it's where we are at today, either social media, you're texting people. I mean, it was one of those that even after like they kicked the field goal game's over, like I'm rewinding it, trying to figure out like what could possibly go wrong in this. Like, how could you miss that? So, I mean, that was probably the most blatant thing that I have ever seen. And I just don't see how a referee could honestly um, do that and then think I got the call right. I mean, and just to completely ruin the outcome of a game. And I know, that's one of those which 2020 ended up being, a bad year overall, not just in sports, but with everything. It was just kind of, it still leaves a bad taste in my mouth. And honestly, to this day, is one of the reasons why I hate on Bo Nix so much. Even him going to Oregon and now the NFL, it's just one of those things that he will never be in my good graces as a player.
And looking back on that season, just you win that game, you're sitting 2-1 because you have to play Georgia. I mean, this is the SEC only year. You lose 30 and the Georgia game, 37-10. You beat Mississippi State 21-14, and then that one. You win that one, then the next following week you beat LSU. You're sitting at 3-1 going into the Texas A&M game. Do I think you still lose the Texas A&M game? Yes, probably so. But you never know. Look, it might project you. Now you might win. Look at the last two of the last three games. When you look at the LSU game, the Missouri games, 27-24 loss and 50-48 shootout against Missouri. What if you win that one? How does that change the landscape of this rivalry? I mean, there's so many things that you can. I mean, when we're going to go down this what if train a lot this summer, but you just look at the what ifs, how that could change the trajectory of this season, and the fact that you win that game. What does it do going forward into the next season? But yeah, that game was just horrible because of the fact that he did muff it. But when you look at it, I compare it to like an anticipation foul that a ref calls in basketball. If a guy's going up for a layup, somebody's there, he just automatically blows the whistle because he's anticipating that guy's going to foul him. They blew the play dead. So therefore, on their standpoint, they had to stand by it because you couldn't overturn that. Now, with today's technology and all this stuff going on, they should have been able to review it, but it's like also when you blow the whistle dead, now the defense is like, both teams are like, what do you do? So how could you clearly say who had the ball? But I mean, you let that play. That's why you let a play out, and then you go back and review it, because if Arkansas falls on that, game's over. They win the game. So yeah, that was a big one again. That everybody hates Bo Nix because of the Bo Nix fumble.
Yeah, and it wasn't. It was one of those things that it solely goes back to the refs. I mean, he's just playing, but the fact that we blame the refs for enough, and I know knowing if you know a referee by name, that's not necessarily a good thing. And that the SEC officiating crews are, a lot of us know their names and who they are, and we look at what games they're calling, but it's one of those things that with Auburn games in particular, they're either close, there's some sort of drama, or unfortunately we've been blown out by them. But those games that we are in it that have been close, you don't want to be decided by a referee.
Yeah. Oh, and then moving to the next play that we'll talk about is just the fact that back in 2009, I remember watching this. We're playing in a softball tournament in Texas, and just this whole game, you could see what if I'll tell you what, if Twitter would have been around during this game or this time frame, you want to talk about outrage. There was so much outrage in this game because this was Florida, coming off the 2008 season. They ended up going and losing to Alabama in the SEC championship game, and then having to play Cincinnati in the Sugar Bowl. But you're looking at the first year, Mallet coming in, they finished 8-5 on the year. What would that have done finishing 9-4? Then you head into the 2010 season where you, of course, the scoop and score loss against LSU. Granted, all that doesn't matter because we know what happened that following off season, but you just look at that, what this game meant, and we'll play the clip and we'll talk about the clip after it's over with.
I don't get that. Come on.
And another flag. This one thrown by the referee.
Yeah, I think Patrick Jones is going to get called on this one, I believe, for Arkansas. Unnecessary roughness or something, unsportsmanlike.
Something.
Nice pursuit by the Arkansas defense, but another penalty.
They have no clue.
Personal foul, number 96, defense.
Malcolm Shepard.
First down.
Was it Malcolm Shepard? I thought it was 95. Could have been Shepard 96. There's Shepard being hit. What's he supposed to do? The guy was going to try to block him.
Wow.
I don't get that. Come on, the guy was trying to hit him 20 yards from the play, and he gets called for that? My goodness.
Yeah, and you look at that at the very end. The ref runs by the play and doesn't throw the flag. The flag comes by after the ref has already ran by. Florida goes on to win that game 23-20. So, again, they kick the field goal, that puts them ahead, but it's like, what happens to that season? What happens in the essence now the net following week you lose to Ole Miss 30-17? Now you opened up the season against Georgia, Alabama, then you had A&M, and then you played Auburn before the Florida game. So you're sitting at 3-2, possibly 4-2 going into that final stretch where you could be 9-4 on that season. What bowl game do you go to instead of the Liberty Bowl? What bowl game do you go to? What does that do to that team? But it was just weird vibe because that whole game, it was like that. It was just, you could see that again, why Arkansas's never won in that stadium. It was a fix. We could keep on saying about the Onyx fumble, but you go back to 2009 and you're talking about the same thing. It's happened 2009.
It's when you brought that up this morning, I was like, I had to think for a second. And then whenever I remembered it, you just start remembering, especially going and getting the video. It's like, I think I ended up watching about 10 or 15 minutes worth of that game, just different spots on it. And you start playing, like you were saying, the what if game. What would have happened to the rest of the season? What would have happened the week after? And, like we said off air when we were talking, that I believe the week prior, that same officiating crew, which is everybody's favorite, Mark Curls, there was a bad call, and I believe it was an LSU game. They ended up getting suspended for 2 weeks after that. Yeah. And it's one of those things that it just sucks that it takes stuff like that to happen. Because, not only what happened in the game prior, but then our game, for the SEC to come down and actually penalize the referees for it.
Yeah. And here's another thing that act about is like, how the season wore on. Let's just think about this 2009 Florida team, put it in a SEC, how we see the SEC right now, and with the college football playoff or latter stages of the BCS. Florida was undefeated and got beat soundly by LSU in the SEC championship game. They went 13-1 and they had to play in the Sugar Bowl. So could you imagine this was Alabama? Your only loss was in the SEC championship game, and you lost out on a shot to play in the national championship, which things like this is what led them to expand to this college football playoff format. And now it's what's led to this 12-team expansion. But it's crazy to think that they only lost one game that year, but they should have lost that game too against Arkansas. So was it kind of a makeup of like, well, y'all got out easy of that Arkansas game. You lose to Alabama 32-12. We're gonna bump you to number 5, and you're gonna play Cincinnati in the Sugar Bowl.
Oh yeah, and then you just start deep diving into other call. I mean, obviously there's more too, and quite frankly, if any other people have more ideas, throw them out. You'll gladly crop the videos and post them just to sit there and get the conversations going. And I enjoy pointing out when the referees screw up because, yes, we talk about it in the moment, but I don't think we go back and really, really discuss it because, we try to put it out of our head.
How much do you think, and this, I think I'll bring this up at another time, but how much do you think it would help change the game of college athletics and pro? We're seeing it at the pro levels too, that referees and umps are held to a standard and they actually get held accountable for their actions. They get fined. You can't even talk about a ref or you get a fine. What if you have a chart and you're talking about going to these automated refs or these robot refs in baseball? Well, what if you went in and you don't call this percentage and you miss all these calls? We're going to take it out of your pay, or we're going to send you down to AAA, or we're going to send you down to Division II. Or how do you think that would change sports if they really just held that one aspect of it? They just held refs and umpires accountable for their mistakes.
Well, I think it would change a lot of things. I really didn't pay much attention to really how, like, I'll use Major League Baseball as the example here. That they have like a rating or ranking of their umpires. And like there was one I was talking about earlier, this is post Angel Hernandez, but there was another umpire over this past week that was doing his best Hernandez impressions because some of the calls, he was making were just blatantly off. And the article I read said that he was ranked or rated the 83rd out of 86 umpires. Man. And this is the first time I had ever really heard that or seen that there's actually a rating system in place. I think that stuff like that, why not put it out there? Why not let us know how they're graded? If they're graded, per game or how it all works out. Give us their statistics like we get player statistics. Let them sit in a post-game interview. Let them go to, in the post-game pressers. Have them separate from the players and the coaches, but put them in front of a group of media members and let them answer up some of these questions. Some of these referees, especially in the NBA, they like the limelight. They're going to social media. I know there's one NBA ref in particular. He loves when he has to go to the video monitor for review because he gets to sit there and be on camera and talk to the arena and talk to I think he has a TikTok as well, and he's getting made fun of for. But you want to be in the limelight, you want to be in the spotlight. Answer up for some of the calls, or even too, if you feel like you were justified in said call, speak to the media and tell them why. Tell your side of it.
Yeah, because these guys, I'm looking at the MLB umpires. They make from $110,000 to $432,000 a year. They're not out there on a chump change salary. They're out there making money. And that's the biggest thing is the fact that MLB, let's just go off the bare minimum, 110,000. You're getting paid 110,000. Granted, you probably got to ump a lot of games, but that's still a lot of money. And that's what everybody's frustrated because you're getting paid a lot of money to do something. And it's like, you don't even care because you're not having to account for your mistakes. So you can just go out there. Average NBA ref makes $200,000 to $500,000 a year in the NBA. You're reffing quite a bit of games, not as much as baseball, but that's what when you're talking about like the NFL, 200. So you're thinking $200,000 a year. You're getting make off of a job that we're not asking you to be perfect, but you're at the point where you're held with these union standards where that guy is so bad. Hernandez was so bad that he was forced out. If that tells you how bad of a umpire he was, but it's crazy. I think there was one of the worst ones, not worst because I've really felt bad for the was when he broke up the perfect game. When he called that safe when it should have been an out. I can't remember if it was the Tigers or Detroit Tigers pitcher which he was 1 out away from a perfect game or is in the 9th inning, and the blew the call, and he had to erase his number, change his number. Social had to change. I mean, everything. He was getting death threats. And I think that's where you get into that. Look, let's not go give death threats, but it's like, man, you hate it for the pitcher that had a perfect game going and you lose it off of a blown call.
I mean, it's one of those, I think it's what we're seeing with how social media is, by putting all these referees and umpires like basically on blast, that you're starting to see potential changes in it. I like you said, though, I think a lot of it they're hidden behind unions. So it's one of those that they don't have to come talk to the media. They don't have to do this. They don't have to do that. But at the same time, it's like, why not look at it from the aspect of, if you're good at your job, why wouldn't you care to go talk about it?
Exactly.
If you're good about it, why are you hiding? So
because they don't want to lower their pay. They don't want it taken out. And even I think when Hernandez left, even one of the top umps that was still there, he's like, he was good at his job. No, he wasn't. And you're standing up for the brotherhood. And it's just the thing that it's the arrogance. If they were stand up people and they owned that, man, I hate that I got this wrong, or man, look, we're humans. If they would have some legit excuse, and I could sit there and be like, okay, stand behind the plate. Could you do that? But I'm not getting paid millions or hundreds of thousands of dollars to do it either. It's easy to flip it around and say, well, could you stand behind the plate and do that? No, because I'm not been trained. I'm not worked my way up to the major league ranks to call strikes and balls. But how much would that change the framing of the pitches? And you see people going up 4, 5, 6 inches on the catcher's mitt coming up and framing a pitch where it's like, oh, strike. It's I hope it leads to a change, because I don't want this automated stuff, because again, it takes the human element out of it. And even the whole, you put technology in it, even that glitches.
It does. And I mean, like you said, it takes away the human element. I know a lot of people for years, you gripe or complain about even the review process, but you still have the human element side of a judgment call even on some reviews that it's gotten wrong. But either way, you're going to have folks that don't like it, even if it's you've got an automated strike zone, computerized strike zone, and you get 100 out of 100 calls. We'll still find something else to complain about.
Yeah. Oh, exactly.
Even if it was 100% accurate every single time, we'll still find something.
Yeah. Well, this upcoming Monday, we're going to have Jalissa Cole of She Got Game Little Rock on the show. We're going to talk about the women's league they have going on down there starting on the 9th. We put the flyer out that has all the teams in it, how you can watch, where it is, times, ticket prices. Be sure to stay tuned with the Hawg Talk, as we're going to have all the scores and highlights that they give us to post on our social medias. We'll have her on, and as well keep you up to date with the Fort Smith Marshals baseball team. I believe they're sitting at 5-4 right now on the year. They're playing right now as we speak. And do not have an updated score yet, but when we do, again, we can keep you updated on those scores. Go to watch them play. I believe they're in town for a couple of days, so go down to Fort Smith if you're in the area. If you're in Central Arkansas, go check out the She Got Game, and we'll visit with Jalissa on that, as well as I think potentially the league president as well. But Adam, you got anything else before we wrap it up?
No, it's getting hot this weekend, so stay cool, stay hydrated.
Right. All right. Well, that will do it for this episode of the Hawg Talk podcast. Again, brought to you by BetOnline. Believe, Sterling Soap Studios, and we will catch you on Monday.